Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Y'all, this movie is doing gangbusters. Right now, I believe it's sitting at around the $700 million mark globally, projected to hit somewhere around $1 billion by the time its run is over. I mean, financial success is no surprise for the MCU at this point, but given it is their 28th film, and it's with Doctor Strange, a character who isn't necessarily as high up as the Iron Mans and Captain Americas and especially Spider-Mans of the world. We have seen Doctor Strange now in Spider-Man, Infinity War, Endgame, and he was given some very large roles in all those movies. So maybe this kind of bolstered him up a little bit, but maybe it also has to do with just how relevant this movie is supposed to be or how important it's supposed to be for the future of the MCU. But despite that, this movie is not succeeding with flying colors. I mean, financially, yes. However, critically, this movie has been a little bit mixed. Right now it's sitting at about a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. Hardly the worst thing in the world, but a little bit lower than some of the MCU movies we've come to expect. Why is that? Let's talk about it. But first, let me warn you, this video will contain spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The movie's been out for multiple weeks now, so if you haven't seen it, why are you clicking on this video, you weirdo? Go watch the movie, then come back and listen to what I have to say and engage down in the comments. So Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Like I said, a little bit mixed critically. I think I tend to agree with that take quite a bit. However, I think I'm a little bit higher than some of the other critics have been. So let's start with the writing on this movie, which I believe is the messiest and probably worst part of this movie. I think a lot of that comes down to the themes and the things that this movie is trying to tell you. It really felt like the screenwriters were trying to accomplish too much, and they bit off more than they could chew. In this movie, we had Doctor Strange's relationship with Christine, which, much like the first movie, felt very half-baked, wasn't hit on as hard as it probably should have been, not to mention it was an entirely different Christine than the one we'd seen him with before, and I think the first movie even did a better job setting up the relationship and the few scenes they actually had together, which I think is a problem. Then you had Doctor Strange's relationship with America Chavez, which I liked America Chavez quite a bit. However, she was relegated to basically being a plot device. They didn't give us a lot that would make us really care for her character. We had that one scene where we learned about her moms and a little bit about her backstory, but beyond that, they had some quippy dialogue with Doctor Strange, but beyond that, there wasn't too much to really give to us there. And I wish we would have seen more about America, and I wish that relationship between her and Doctor Strange would have been hit on a little bit more so that we'd feel that impact. The entire movie, I was like, I don't want the kid to die because I don't like kids dying, but if Wanda did it, and I think that's an issue. And then the movie also hits on Wanda's grief and journey of grief and pursuit of her children. And I think this is probably the most divisive part of the movie for many people. I fall in the camp of, I do believe this was too rushed. Where we left off in WandaVision, we know that she was grieving, we know she had issues, but at the end of it, we were led to believe that she had made progress and was on the right path. I know I think it was the end credit scene, we saw her reading the Darkhold, or what we now know as the Darkhold, and that makes sense tying into this movie. But still, we went from a character who is still supposedly a hero into just being a full-on villain. And when I say villain, I mean villain, killing anyone and anything that stands in her way so that she can get to her children, including herself. She would willingly kill herself in a different dimension just to take those children. And it felt so sudden and so aggressive. And I'm not gonna lie, it was amazing to watch. She makes a very, very great villain. However, just the way it was set up just felt rushed. And they never really hit on why she feels that grief so much. I don't know, I guess that was part of WandaVision, but still in this movie, it felt too fast. And then the movie also had some sub-points or sub-things it was trying to tell. It was brought up a couple times, did Doctor Strange really have to do the thing he did in Infinity War? Is that the only path they could have gone down, or could he have done something differently? It touches this, but doesn't expand on it in any way. It feels like the screenwriters just wanted to say, hey, think about this, and then give you nothing to chew on. So much of this movie, it just felt rushed. It felt like they were trying to do too much. And if they cut down on it, focused on maybe one or two of these themes, it could have come out to be a much better movie than it was. But instead, it feels like a movie that didn't have that much to say because they never really expand on any of these topics as much as they should have. And I think you see all this in the pacing of this movie. As soon as this movie gets going, it gets going and it is non-stop. This is a very fast-paced movie, and I think they had to do it this way because they were trying to cram so much in there. And I'm not gonna lie, it makes for an exciting movie watching experience, and I know that's part of the point, but it's kind of exhausting at some points. And as soon as you get that first break, which for me I really felt as soon as Doctor Strange started fighting that alternate version of himself with the third eye, the evil one, as cool as that fight was, it was at that point that I was like, this movie's kind of dragging on a little bit. Let's wrap this up. It felt like the movie wanted to finish, but they still had so much more to do, and they had these cool ideas, and they thought, we really need to cram this into the movie, so we're going to add this here. And it felt like it shouldn't have been that way. Now, where this movie absolutely shines, however, is in its direction. Sam Raimi, you are a god. I think more than any other MCU movie, this one really stands out on its own as being uniquely different. And that's entirely due to Sam Raimi's unique direction that he took this movie. I'm talking just the camera angles and the Dutch angles, the different horror elements that he adds into there. Obviously, Sam Raimi has an extensive history in horror, and you feel it in this movie. The scenes where Wanda's walking around and she's injured, chasing Strange in America and Christine, it's just amazing, and you really feel that fear. And even the cheesiest elements, because this movie is absolutely goofy in some ways. Like the zombie hand reaching up from the ground like it's a 1970s horror flick. I absolutely love it. I don't care how goofy it is. It's fun to watch. And that's the point of these movies. You can't take them too seriously. You still want those good character moments. You want the good plot. However, if you add those goofy elements into it, I don't think it subtracts from the experience at all. I think it just makes it fun. And I loved it. I absolutely hope Sam Raimi gets another chance to direct another Marvel movie, and hopefully he has a slightly better writing team or a little bit more oversight on the writing, because I would love to see him direct a movie that has the writing chops as well. Because there's a lot that's really great in this movie, and I think his direction is one of those things. It's just bogged down by a script that fails to tell a lot of the points that it wants to. Now, as far as future implications go for the MCU, I think this movie is one of the most important MCU movies to have come out in a while. Obviously, now we have the multiverse. And not only do we have the multiverse, now we have a character who can traverse the multiverse. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more of America into the future. And I think this also gives them a lot of leeway and ability to bring in characters and different storylines that they wouldn't have been able to. Like, I know everyone's talking about John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, and that makes a lot of sense because that was awesome. You also have Patrick Stewart in there. That means we could get the X-Men, get the Fantastic Four. That brings so many more stories into the MCU. But one of the most exciting things for me, I haven't even seen What If, was Peggy Carter as Captain Britain? Captain England? I know the name. It'll come to me. Seeing Peggy in that role was so exciting to me because that's a character that we never would have gotten otherwise. You know? Like, they could have easily introduced John Krasinski in a different way or Patrick Stewart in a different way. They could have existed in these universes, just not been brought in yet. But that's a story that you can only have when you have a multiverse. Because in the main timeline, she's dead. She's not there anymore. So to have this, it's a different way to tell all these unique stories that because of certain story events just never would have been possible before. And I love that. I think it's very exciting. However, I do think Marvel has to hold themselves back a little bit because now that they have opened the floodgates that is the multiverse, it very quickly can fall into the trap of nothing matters because there's always another universe out there. Or just the elimination of any kind of rules in this universe. If things just start happening, you can just bring in anything from the multiverse. It kind of discredits any sense of fear or stakes in the current universe. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Marvel takes this into the future. I think if they've proven anything, it's that they know what they're doing, so I have high hopes that they'll be able to pull this off, but we'll see. And of course we have to talk about the end credit scene with Doctor Strange, and I don't know the other lady's name, but I know it's the actress Charlize Theron. I'm very excited to see where this goes. It looks like she opens up the dark dimension, or where Dormammu is from the first movie. And from what I've heard online, she is also a possible love interest for Strange, which I think is great. I think it's time for them to move on from Christine, since they already kind of closed that door with Christine getting married in Doctor Strange's universe. So I'm really curious to see how they take this character moving forward, and I hope they have an interesting story to tell there. I will say I was also disappointed that they didn't really touch on Mordo all that much. It really seemed like this movie was supposed to be set up as some kind of, he's going to come back and get revenge for Doctor Strange bending all the rules and doing the forbidden curses and whatnot. He was just kind of there as like a side character, someone in the way, and he even had like the worst fight in the whole movie. I mean, when you have Doctor Strange with magic powers, and he has magic powers, and then they just get in a fist fight together. I mean, it's kind of lame. So I'm a little bit disappointed that he had nothing to do. And we never really saw him in Doctor Strange's universe. They kind of touch on it a little bit, but I'm hoping that we get to see more of him. And I hope he has a larger role to play into the next movie. So overall, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has a lot of issues, primarily on the writing front. And it's a little bit disappointing on that point. I don't know that this is a movie that I'm going to go back and watch again and again and again, just because I don't feel as much for the characters. However, this movie is a pure visual marvel, and I think Sam Raimi's direction pushes this to be better than it should have been based on the script, and I love it for that. So even though the writing's a little bit messy, I think a lot of that is made up in the direction. This movie is definitely worth a movie ticket, and then maybe worth watching on streaming once or twice before some of the next movies that also hit on the multiverse. So that's my thoughts on this movie. This is the first movie review I've ever done. I'm also the first time I'm recording in this apartment, first time recording in years, so hopefully this turns out pretty good. We'll just get better, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know down below what you thought of the movie, or if you disagree with some of my points. But otherwise, I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.